Welcome everyone to the Appy Hour. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about AP. This is a topic that, is always a good one because there's always need. So whether you're somebody who wants a really simple solution or you're somebody who says, oh my gosh, I need automation, I need permissions, I need PO matching, I need to even have 10 matching, all of those different pieces. Wherever you land on the spectrum, you need to know what's available. So I'm really glad today that we're able to talk with Tipalti. So we have some special guests that are here, and we're going to be able to pull in this conversation about what if you need some robust options, what's available to you. And the cool thing is that the Tipalti platform is very easy to use. So just because there's a ton of features doesn't mean that it gets really, really complicated to learn. So 2 thumbs up for that one. Awesome. Heather, do you want to introduce yourself first, or do you want me to go? Okay, fantastic.
So I'm Heather Satterlee. I am a technology lover and QuickBooks Pro Advisor and CPA. And I have a consulting firm called Satterlee Training and Consulting, where I focus on helping others learn and use accounting technologies such as QuickBooks and third-party integrated apps like Tipalti. And I've been doing that for a really long time, and I'm really excited to be here.
Well, I'm glad that you're here too. And so I'll share a little bit about myself. So Liz Scott, for those of you who don't know me, and a little bit about what I do is I predominantly work with apps and consulting and how do we do better. The accounting firm is a really great place to have a playground for connecting all of these apps and giving advice about what works and what doesn't work. And then the Appy Hour is always super fun with all of you. So I'm really, really glad that everyone's here. And I'd like to introduce our special guests that are with us. So Chris, you're a longtime friend. I'm glad you're here. Do you want to go ahead and share with us what your role is with Tipalti?
Yeah, so thank you for having us again. Love to be here with you guys as always. My name is Chris Paolucci. As she said, I am the Alliances Manager here at Tipalti. I work within the QuickBooks ecosystem and the partner ecosystem of QuickBooks, and that's how we came across Liz at Appy Hour, which has been a great show and a great partner to us. And Heather is always knowledgeable for the QuickBooks community as well. So thank you again for being here, and I'll pass it off to Brian.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Liz and Heather. Nice to meet you. My name is Brian Batts. I'm a senior solution consultant with Tipalti. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Cool. And what is a solution consultant? So I am essentially the liaison between our alliances team, our account management team, our sales team, and the product and engineers. I serve as product expert. I am also an active CPA, spent 15 plus years in the accounting world. So that's my background. I most recently served as director of accounting for GoDaddy. They're based here in Arizona where I reside, and they use Tipalti, and I ended up being so enamored with the technology, to Heather's point about being kind of a tech nerd, that I switched my career to help people. So nice to meet you all.
Hey, well, we're glad that you're here. And that's quite a background. So I feel really, really lucky to have both you, Brian, and Chris with us. And Brian, what you heard was me renaming you because we had Chris in here twice. So we updated your name so you can go by your right name.
All right, thank you.
That's great. And he's the brains of the operation, so this works out well.
Well, I would say to anybody who sees you at a conference to go and hang out that you're definitely a fun person to be with during a conference.
Exactly. Thank you.
We want to say, yeah, of course. We want to say thank you to our champagne level sponsor, Ignition. And this year we've been able to do a lot of episodes and bring to you content that wouldn't be possible if we didn't have our dear friends over at Ignition. So thank you. And today, when we go through our episode, I really love this idea of global payments. I feel like, we have global communities, so all of the different features that we're going to be going through are really designed for somebody who's looking for options and looking for more. So without any further ado, I will just throw it out here, the challenges. And this is a conversation that I feel like so many of us can relate to, that if we're thinking about payables, it doesn't really matter the size of the business, it's a pain, and it's always a pain. And it's like, how do you alleviate the majority of the pain? And so, you know, the conversation that I want to start having here is, you know, how many different various ways do you get bills? They come in all different kinds. And I don't know if anybody's had this experience. You can throw it over in chat, but I actually had a client one time that did not enjoy opening the mail. And so they struggled with the bills that were coming in. They got overwhelmed by just seeing them. And so, you know, that was actually, it's been several years, but that was actually one of the things that was an ask is, can you sort through my mail to be able to help with that?
Yeah, you're right, Liz. And I think the biggest challenge is, you know, when things are done differently, depending on, like, when the workflow is not consistent, right? When you have, you know, when your tasks aren't being done the same way every time, it poses a challenge. And that's how things slip through the cracks. So having something that can handle all the different ways that, you know, you get bills, and being able to handle that so that the workflow is the same across the organization, that's always a huge benefit.
You know, I don't know if anybody here's tried it. It'd be interesting to see in chat, but you know, the virtual mailboxes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's really, really great for somebody who is like my client, that's no longer a service that we offer. But for somebody who really wants that, but to stay digital, you can actually have these digital mailboxes that will look at the mail and they'll scan it and they'll make it available to you, which I think is a really cool option that we have that now.
It is cool. It's very innovative for sure. And you know, what's really interesting too, Liz, is, you know, we talked about throughout, like, we have technology that may have been around for a long time for larger companies. And what's really cool is that now we're seeing some of those, you know, a lot of those technologies that were really only available to large billion-dollar companies that are now available to the small and mid-sized businesses that really need them. So that's something that I love to see, is seeing those solutions kind of trickle down into the mainstream, into the small, you know, the SMB space.
Well, and I think that, Chris, you could even speak to that, because you've been on this journey with Tipalti, that is where you started, is in that larger size business, and then being able to see that the QuickBooks market also needed to be able to have a robust solution to stay inside of QuickBooks. I mean, I think that's one of the areas that they struggle.
Yeah, 1000%. And like you were saying earlier, because we're so robust doesn't mean it's a scary solution. We can break it down and make pieces and parts work for your business. And having the ability to do that and giving those streamlined effects to medium businesses and small businesses as well, it does wonders for what they can do as far as their capabilities as a person to do 4x of what they're doing today in their own role, so they can focus on other pieces of their business, such as going out and getting the AR side of the business, which is the part that most businesses care about anyway, right? Getting the revenue in the door. So having the ability to focus your time by streamlining through automation, huge.
You know, the other thing I would just point out is that a lot of times when you're working with larger companies, that's a huge opportunity for a small company. And so being on a platform that is used by larger trading partners that could afford you opportunities that you might not have if you're the person that's sending out the paper invoice in the mail is huge as well. So helping our clients to become automated through this type of technology actually opens them up for other opportunities that they may not, you know, have had before.
I agree. And, you know, one of the things that's on here is the little chat bubble. Well, that's another thing that people have recognized, that we're mobile and people need to be met where they're at with the solution. So having a solution that meets you, whether it's being by email and working in your browser, or if you're somebody who's on the go, or you're going to be, you know, on a tablet, you need to be able to have a solution that will be able to meet your needs. And we kind of talked about the growth, and that sometimes whenever we're thinking about processes, you hit on it a little bit, Heather, is that we need to be able to share that across the board. So how do you identify what your workload is and what the workflow is to then be able to collaborate? So that's a big issue.
It is. And, I think a lot of businesses don't realize how disparate their systems are because they get
That's
into the
so
groove of
true.
just taking, doing the work, right? So, things are coming at you. You're trying to solve a problem and so you just keep going on doing it all, 5, 10 different ways, depending on who it is that, you're working with as far as trading partners. And so when you start to define your own internal processes and say, this is how we do things, and we're going to do this across all of our trading partners, and you take the time to actually set that up within your organization, the ROI on that investment is kind of unbelievable. And when you see that happen within an organization where they've made that change, and you ask them 6 months, 9 months, or sometimes it's even a month, right? And with some implementations, they'll say to you, my gosh, I can't even imagine going back to doing it that way. Right? They've done it that way for years and years
totally
and years
true.
to make the change. And then they look back in retrospect and say, I can't believe that I didn't do this sooner. And then at that point, their mindset changes, right? Because they realize that they need to take that little bit of time to dig into their internal processes within their business in other areas of the business, right? To streamline that across their entire business and their trading partners. And it's huge. It's a huge change and benefit when they do that. But it does take the work up front, right?
It does. And, one of my favorite sayings of yours is, one time. So one time setting it up, and then after that, it's automated. Well, whenever you're thinking about a solution, one time you have to learn it. And there's things that you can continue to learn. And that's one of the things I'm excited about today, because we're going to actually have a demo and you're going to get to see it in action. But, one time learn something and then you can always expand on it, but it's that investment in the beginning. So knowing what your options are, understanding really what are you trying to accomplish, I think that that's a big one. And here's part of it. So when I'm thinking about people who are looking for some solutions, tax compliance, I don't know that we always think about with having our AP solution being able to handle our vendor 10 match. But when I'm at the end of the year, we're getting ready to be right there in the holiday season. It doesn't feel like it's quite time yet, but we're nearing that point that we're starting to go through our clients and we're starting to look through all of the vendor lists. Do we see any duplicates? Do we have any accounts that maybe are also duplicates? So anything that's similar or like or duplicate, we're making those changes right now at this point of the year in order to have a smoother year end. But thinking about the whole system, how can you bring in your solution that you're using to do additional things? I think that that's the part that we continue to see in our environment of apps, is that we also have additional features. And Tipalti's got this feature to be able to do 10 matching right as you're onboarding. It's part of the onboarding process. So you get to the end of the year and you're already part of the way there.
Mm-hmm.
So the secret formula, I can't wait to see all of the Tipalti in action. But when we're thinking about a solution, the parts that I'm looking for, what I need is I need to be able to have electronic payments. I don't do checks anymore. That's like gone. I don't even know that the last time that I needed to reorder checks, I really stopped to think about it. Do I really, really need this? Or is there some other way that I can accomplish being able to pay bills? So I don't know. Checks are kind of one of those things that are done for me. Being able to see reports. This is another area that whenever I'm thinking about my clients, I'm also thinking about cash flow. What can they do in order to create a environment where they're able to see what's the amount of money that's going out? So better cash flow management. What would you say also, Heather, is part of a secret formula to accounts payable?
Yeah, I definitely getting away from the paper method and having a really solid approval process so that, especially for accountants, we're all about accountability, we're all about, ticking and tying. And so I think that growth in the payroll department is making sure that you have those checks and balances from, for the entire procurement process, right?
Yeah, that's great. I was looking over in chat to see if we had anybody who was adding any comments over there. So I'm curious if anybody here has used Tipalti. I'm happy to say that I've been able to be in the platform and had an experience with Tipalti. So I'm going to say our drink toast is awesome. And I'm always a fan of tequila. So there you go. And I wondered, like, how did you come up with your drink? Was it because of the color or was it tequila?
Well, I came up with the drink because it's something I have almost every weekend during the summer, and I know summer still lasts until September 21st. Don't let the Labor Day confuse you. It is September 21st, and I try to stretch it out as long as possible so I could feel like I'm on a beach. I always have a peach margarita on the weekend just to, relax and enjoy the weekend by the pool.
That's great. I didn't have you nailed for a peach margarita kind of guy.
I
we're
will
going
drink
right into
whatever, but that's good when it's really hot outside.
Totally.
And we're going right into peach season right now too. I know here in Rhode Island, our peaches are ripe, so they're all over the farm stands, and so this was a really good choice in Rhode Island because we're all about the peaches right now.
Oh my
That's another
gosh.
reason I picked it.
Well, and you talk about peach, it's like that creates a whole argument on which is the peach state. So I know there's a lot of debate as to who claims the peach state.
I'm going to
So
stay
Chris, I feel
Switzerland on
like,
that.
would you like me to go ahead and pass presenter to you, or would you like me to go ahead and just present to the next slide?
No, you could present to the next slide. Let's do it.
Okay.
So thank you everybody for coming out. I'm so happy to be here. Just going to give you a quick overview of Tipalti if you haven't heard of us. I know we've been talking like you guys know who we are, but for those of you who don't know who we are a global AP automation solution. We were founded in 2010 and we've been rapidly growing since. We have well over 2,200 customers. We're processing 30 billion in annual transactions. So we are a licensed money transmitter. We do a for benefit of account. When you open up an account with Tipalti, we pay the bills on your behalf. And as Liz was saying earlier, we help you and your clients move away from that paper process around paper check payments, although we do offer that as well. Do ACH, wire, PayPal, local bank transfers, and Brian will show you how all that works in just a minute or two. And we've been growing ever since, like I said, and don't let these logos scare you away. A lot of these, like a Twitter, have been with us for over 10 years, even prior to them getting as big as they are today. So we are built to scale. Will grow with you, but we can be as not as robust as you need us to be. Like I said a little earlier, you can use pieces and parts of our solution just for your business that fits just for what your back office solution might need to look like. So don't let it scare you away. Next slide. So earlier, Liz had talked about vendor management, tax compliance, and invoice processing. Those are just a few of the things that we can do. And like I said, you can use pieces and parts of these functionalities within the Tipalti platform. So what we'll focus on today and what Brian will really dive into is the vendor onboarding experience and how that ties into tax compliance and building your financial resiliency and showing you that you can expand your business, do 4x of what you were doing, and while being able to focus on other pieces of your business like AR or figuring out financial strategies through invoice processing and bills, and figuring out how can I alter bill dates and build that resiliency around there within your financial processes as the markets become a little bit unwavered right now. So the resiliency is probably a term you've seen a lot and heard a lot lately within the back office solution. And I know a lot of people within the accounting world that have come to Tipalti as a customer have had trouble finding headcount, and that's another reason why putting automation into not just the AP side of your business, but your business overall is so important. And then we'll go into some payables, and then obviously reconciliation and reporting. We have integration with QuickBooks Online. So Brian, I'm going to pass it off to you and let you take it away.
All right, very good. May I share my, okay, very good.
And you should, let's make sure that you have got.
I think I'm good.
Okay, great. Great. And I would say, Brian, I thank you for being willing to present today. We've probably got a good solid 15-20 minutes for demo so that we can really dive in, because there's so many different features here.
Absolutely. And you all, please, thank you, Liz. Keep me honest, pull the cane out when necessary. I'll try to go through this in an expeditious manner. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we see it.
Good. Okay, cool. Chris touched on this. I'm just going to quickly give you the macro view in my eyes about what we're going to walk through today. So this is what we call the wheel. And as Chris was articulating, we are a holistic platform. And what I mean by that is we truly want to handle everything from helping you do that initial supplier onboarding all the way to reconciliation. And so just to preview what we're going to talk about, we do host a portal for your vendors to go through, and I'll show that live today. I describe this in my view as a preventive control. And so when I say preventive control, well, what the heck are we preventing? Well, we're preventing downstream payment errors. How do we do that? Well, we do that by 26,000 plus rules in the Supplier Hub to validate that the banking information is correct, the TIN validation that Liz and Heather talked about earlier. So related to this onboarding in the Supplier Hub, as we call it, there's this element of tax compliance. And when we say that we not only do TIN validation, to me, the headline is we actually partnered with KPMG, global accounting firm, to digitize the collection of the tax information. So we'll talk about that. I will also tell you, when I work with some of my QBO customers, you may or may not be issuing purchase orders, right? You may or may not have an upstream process. But what I will tell you is Tipalti has a module to handle upstream PO management. So I just wanted to tickle you guys with that. We don't have enough time to go through all that today, but we can support the issuance of a purchase rec, and we can systematically match that to the invoice within Tipalti and record that back to QuickBooks. So pretty exciting. Okay. Invoice processing, I mean, that's the name of the game, right? At the end of the day, what we're really trying to do for y'all is make sure that you're not doing tedious, laborious data transpositions. And we want to route the invoice to get the vendors paid and happy, and then record it to QBO so that the accountants are happy, right? I mean, that's the goal. So that's what you'll see today and what we discussed. Chris also mentioned this, aside from being a SaaS software solution, we're also a licensed money transmitter. So we can remit payments around the globe should that be of interest either now or in the future. I saw someone ask, how do you compare to Bill.com? I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I will tell you that I do have firsthand experience with some of the clients when I worked as a director of accounting for acquisitions who were on Bill.com on various solutions. And the biggest differentiator, I would say, is we really allow, fast-paced companies to continue to scale. So my answer would be, you might grow out of Bill.com. And number two, I think you'll see some differences in the solution. It's just simply more robust. Okay. Yeah, and so with the global scale, and to give you all a sense, when we talk about being a licensed money transmitter, we're pushing around $37 billion in throughput through Tipalti's rails, partnered with tier 1 banks, Chase, Citi, Wells, and JP. Okay. I am going to jump over to a slide to quickly highlight that we have a direct pre-built integration with QuickBooks. And when I think about from an accounting standpoint, there's three main elements here. When I think about, remember, bringing your vendors on board, we have an in-house implementation team, okay? During implementation, you'll notice that this sync is bidirectional. So we, Tipalti, can pull in your existing vendors into Tipalti to then have them onboarded, right? So you don't have to manually enter the vendors, we can pull them over. Now, after you go live with Tipalti, from a control standpoint and a process standpoint, we will turn the sync to be one direction, meaning that you will then onboard future vendors into Tipalti, and we will push that into QBO automatically, okay? You're not touching any buttons, okay? When I think about the vendor bills that we're trying to process, right? Our point of integration, I think, is key. We require at least one approver on every invoice. Many companies, right, will have 2 levels, 3 levels, right? We can support that in a variety of fashions. Bottom line, when the customer comes to me and says, Brian, I want 3 levels of approval, after that 3rd level of approval, we, through the integration, are going to automatically credit accounts payable and debit the other GL account in QBO. Okay. When I go ahead and make a payment on your behalf, right? Now, what you're going to have the flexibility, we'll get through it today on how we're able to, set up a batch, right, within Tipalti. But once I pay that, I'm going to automatically debit and relieve that liability in QBO. Okay. Any questions, Liz, Heather? Am I going too fast? Does this make sense?
Yeah, this is great. So we've had a couple of questions about QuickBooks Desktop. So we see QuickBooks here, but is there a distinction about QuickBooks Online versus QuickBooks Desktop?
Good question. So the direct integration that we have is with QBO. However, Tipalti, we can and have integrated with multitude of ERPs, and we do that through a file-based integration if it's not a direct. So to answer succinctly, yes, QBD, we can do a file-based integration, couple different options there. QBO is a direct integration. So, happy to get more details, on a subsequent call with anyone.
Well, and I think that makes sense to a lot of people here. I mean, an online program is going to talk to another online program really well. So and where you've got an online and desktop, you have that bit of a connector there.
And by the way, I mean, not to say I want to make this approachable. So when I use the word file integration, just like you said, Liz, we're talking QBD is a desktop application, right? So we need a way to send a file, a CSV of the elements of Tipalti to QBD. So that can be done through upload, that can be done through an auto sync through a server. There's a couple different options there. But bottom line, we work with QBD and QBO all the time.
That's great. And looking right here at the sync, I just kind of want to share my experience. So I love that you're showing this vendor by directional sync. So what that means is if you've already got vendors set up inside of QuickBooks, you can have those import over to Tipalti. But any new vendors, I would say you want to direct them to Tipalti to onboard, because there's such a really great self-onboarding process, which includes being able to make sure that you get the address right or the name right. Any of those LLCs or Incs, all of those pieces matter. And then I love that you kind of went through this piece of we should be paying the bills and we should be managing the bills inside of Tipalti and pushing that data over to QuickBooks.
Yes, and one thing I just thought of, Liz, that will probably get your folks excited on the call is we can actually send that source document, meaning the invoice, right, to QBO. So now they can have it in Tipalti operating as a subledger, but if they want to see the underlying documentation for bill XYZ, they can see that in QBO, and we're going to sync that image automatically.
Well, heck yeah, we geek out over that. We want to be able to have the details. And as somebody who's an outsourced solution and provider of services myself, I want to see the documentation. So if it was a team member of mine, or if it was their team, and then we're responsible for paying, I want the source doc to be accessible. That's great.
Totally agree. All right, then let's keep going here. So I'm toggling over to Tipalti. So this is kind of the landing page on payments, and just for a little bit of super quick orientation, I, of course, have godlike access in this instance of Tipalti. So keeping with the theme of not overwhelming people, I have access to all the different modules, but Tipalti is also very permission-based. So depending on the user, I can say, I want Heather to see or do this, right? I want Liz to see or do this. So that's one thing to note. Another quick thing I would be remiss if I didn't mention is within Tipalti, when we talk about those bill approvers, we do not charge for a bill approver. You could have 1,000 bill approvers in your organization. It's 100% free. We only charge for the core users at a given entity. And right, that's usually a pretty small population of everyday account payable professionals or accountants. Okay.
And what's great about that, so I'll just kind of throw in my 2 cents, is I love it that I can have somebody who's just the bill approver, and then I love it that I can have somebody who's also a payment approver. So it can be 2 different groups of people, or 2 different people.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, Liz. We support, and this, Chris hit on this earlier, Tipalti is scalable for everything from your large scale enterprise all the way down to mom and pop shops. Depending on your organization, we can configure the permissions to the segregation of duties that are appropriate for your entity, right? So very, very granular. All right, so what I'm going to do is, keeping with what I promised, right? We're going to say, how the heck do we onboard a net new vendor, right? And we call those payees at Tipalti. So let's pretend we're live. We've joined a company today called Hyperclear. So that's the role play here. And at Hyperclear, we're going to add a company, or excuse me, add a vendor. Okay. This is me sending out the invitation to this Supplier Hub. Tipalti can autofill a payee ID for you, or you could use your own convention. All I need is an email address. I'm going to click this link, click add, and what's going to happen is an email will be sent out to the payee. Now, your logo can appear here. So we have kind of what we would call a gray labeled theme here. It's going to be sent automatically from your domain, right? So the recipient's going to know it's not a phishing, kind of expedition. You, as the customer, can choose what you want to say within the body of the email, right? More or less information. But the real headline is this hyperlink right here, which is tokenized, meaning it will expire. The recipient can't send it off to their grandma, right? It needs to be opened by the person we sent it to. Okay. Once the vendor clicks on that link the very first time, they're going to land in what we call the Supplier Hub. And I'm going to log out real quick just to show you the front end. We're going to have your logo prominently here. We do support 2-factor authentication for your vendors, right? Security. I've heard, we've talked about a lot of things here. Right? When I think about the modern world, it's keeping personal identifiable information within a secure cloud, right? We're SOC 2 compliant. I don't have to send Heather a PDF of Chris's social security number now because it's in the SOC 2 compliant cloud. Okay. Yeah, I get pretty passionate about this. So anyway, in order to onboard myself, right? 3 steps. I'm going to go through an address, payment method, and tax form. I'm going to keep going just for time constraints here. Let's assume this is a US-based vendor in Montana. Okay. They fill out their information. They go to the next step. Okay. What they're going to be presented with is a series of payment method options. Okay. Now, remember I said Tipalti supports 6 different payment methods. The cool thing about this is someone might be looking at this, right? We had a discussion. Hey, checks That's pre-COVID. We don't do checks anymore, as an example. If you don't want to offer checks, just like a chef would choose what's on his menu or her menu, we don't have to offer the payment methods that don't make sense for your business. So there's a differentiator in my mind. If I choose ACH, right, I think we as accounting and AP professionals would agree, probably the easiest method to go. If I choose direct deposit and I am a vendor that's in a hurry today, right? All of a sudden I start typing out my routing code, and what you see here is real-time validation that this code is not valid. If I didn't even get the right digits, it's going to tell me you don't have the right digits. I know a good routing code. I'm going to enter that. You see that validation disappear. So I'll remind you to what I said earlier, that this is the preventive control in action. Okay. So again, different payment method options. We have a lot of control in terms of you can actually configure the system to whether you want to subsidize on behalf of your vendor the cost of a wire or an ACH, or you could pass it off or split it in the middle. So a lot of configurability here. Unless there's any questions from Liz, Heather, I can't monitor all the chat. I'm going to move to tax forms. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, I totally think that was great. There was a lot of comments about, yes, that we all agree that it's really important to have security, and information should not be, sensitive information should not be emailed. And, you know, I think that many have learned their lessons. I think that even, you know, clients have heard us say enough. It's not safe to do that, but here's a platform that provides a portal to be able to easily add the data that you don't want to have floating around.
100%. Okay, so step 3, again, I got my hat on as your vendor. I'm onboarding. I'm going to go with the assumption that I'm filling out a W-9. Okay, the vendor clicks complete form. What they're going to see now is a digitized W-9 that historically I would have emailed to Heather, you know, in a PDF, but now I've got a digitized tax form. I can capture a legally binding digital signature from your vendor. And on a nightly basis, well, first of all, there's validation within the portal to reconcile the name and the business name versus what they gave us in the address. Okay, so lots of control checks. On a nightly basis, we will ping this name or business name against the IRS's database. And if it has some type of mismatch, we will send proactive emails to our customer as well as to the vendor saying, hey, you have an issue here. In order to be payable, you must fill this out. We think you've made an error, and we would tell you that error. Now, why is this important? I'm assuming someone on the call know about those things called B notices, right? In my experience, using other solutions, we'll say, that don't do tax collection like this, I had a stack of B notices at year end. So this is going to prevent B notices from coming your way.
You know, I would even say that one of the things that happens whenever you've got somebody who's, do you mind go back to the W-9?
Sure.
It's when you're thinking about, if you're thinking about a simple solution that says, what do you want to print on the check? And then you're able to have a check go out to anybody. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right name of the legal name of the business. So this really makes people think through, what are they saying? And then making sure that they're being compliant. So catching it now prevents the frustration later.
I agree. Two more things to quickly touch on here. I know Chris wanted me to make sure I emphasize that when we think about Tipalti, right, and we think about capturing this tax information, and I'm making payments for you, what it does is it allows us to marry up the taxpayer information to the payments. And so at year end, you can actually print out a report that will give you the complete population for 1042S or 1099 prep reporting. You could then take this and internally use it, your tax preparer, et cetera, to send out 1099s, or Tipalti even has an integration with 1099 ZenWorks, where if you want it to be completely white gloved and in ZenWorks to send out the 1099, they can do that. But out of the box, we'll at least give you the report by taxpayer, by payment made.
I love that. So I haven't even got to see that feature live. So it's super exciting. You know, as I was saying earlier, we're like really close to year end whenever we're thinking about the prep work. And, you know, the tie-in to be able to, be able to download the data, but then also, and that's huge, but then also to have that direct connect to process the 1099s. I think the majority of the people that are on this call are somebody who's processes 1099s at year end for their clients.
Great.
Hey, Brian, one question in the chat was certificates of insurance. Can we do that through the portal here?
So certificate of insurance, we can customize like we'll call it a step 3.5 here, if you will, where an attachment can be uploaded during onboarding. So I've seen that used in cases of like a certificate of insurance. So you would have an option to have an additional file uploaded by the vendor. Thanks, Chris. How quick time check? I got like 4 minutes, 5 minutes. What do I have?
You're good right now. So I love it that you're showing the meat of the software. So I'd say keep going.
Okay.
Give yourself another like 7 minutes. I think we want to keep seeing it.
All right, very good. I'll just quickly mention that we have a tax form questionnaire, right? At the end of the day, we want people to get through their onboarding quickly. So if someone is like, I don't know which form, right? They could go through a series of questions here, just like you were doing your own taxes, and it would send you to, in this case, the W-8 Benny form. So just a kind of a cool feature. All right, that's onboarding. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that to the extent you're ever working with an international vendor, we can render this portal in 26 some languages. So I'm going to change it to Spanish just so you can see. That's pretty cool, right? If you have someone who English is not their first language. So now you have the supplier portal in another language. I'm going to switch it back to English. And the other thing I'll say is then after the vendor onboards, where this portal is tremendously helpful is now the vendor can self-serve the payment history. Okay, they can drill down and see essentially a remittance advice within the portal. All of this activity is also preceded by emails. So the vendor is going to receive an email, hey, Liz has paid me, right? And we could even put the dollar amount. Then that vendor could go in and further, download the remittance advice, look at this. So self-serve. So I'd like to think that there's going to be less of the vendor calling you up and saying, where's my payment? Where's this? Because they can self-serve. Okay. Same concept on invoice history. I'll jump forward to say, and Liz and Heather had a nice discussion in the beginning about this. How do your vendors get an invoice into Tipalti? So I call this a Swiss Army knife because there's multiple inroads. Vendor could upload an invoice directly in the portal. We support these image type files, PDF, JPEG, etc. More commonly though, what will happen is during implementation, we will repurpose one of your inboxes, right? I'll say, Liz Scott Company, ap@lizscottcompany.com as an example. As the vendor emails that sends emails to that address, Tipalti will extract those invoices and pull them out and do its thing. As you may know, Tipalti in Hebrew actually stands for we handled it. And so I like to think of we handled it in that concept, right? All the vendor has to do is send an email and then we take it from there, okay? I'll just give you one quick view here. I know we want to discuss I think a batch creation, but I'll show you at what we call when the bill comes in, right? So we left off as we emailed that email address. I'm now in the bills module. I'm on the pending review stage, okay? This is where an AP professional would work their queue to see where these bills needed to go. I have filters here, okay, to manage my workload. any of your fields that you're using in QuickBooks, account, class, location, all seamlessly synced into Tipalti, and I could filter by those classifications, if you will. Okay. I'm going to click on one invoice just so you can have a visual of what our platform does. What you're going to see here, render, is the actual source document on the left-hand side. So this is the invoice that they sent to Liz in my example. What you'll notice is I'm capturing information at a header level and at the detailed line level. Okay, so Tipalti has extracted all of this information objectively at a header level and in a line level. Another differentiator from another solution is we use what's called managed services. So we take OCR technology, optical character recognition, a step beyond, and we'll actually have a team that will make sure that everything on this invoice has been brought over, extracted. Now, any of those coding elements, again, I'm telling you that we're syncing directly from QBO, and even through machine learning, we will start to predict how you start to code certain invoices by vendor. Okay. Real quick, the approval process. We support, if you have a matrix, right, specific, hey, if a bill's over 10,000, it goes to Chris. If it's over this department, it goes to Heather. We can support that, what I call a policy. But we can also, for some of our customers on QBO, you know what, they're like, hey, we have 2 bill approvers. It's going to probably be Carly and Brian, right? So we can just pull Brian into the mix. We don't need a formal matrix. Maybe we want Carly to approve it first, and now I have a 2-step approval process. Okay, so a lot of flexibility there.
Well, so I want to make sure that we get a chance to launch the poll. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. The other thing that while the poll is up, so you should see it. Does everybody see the poll?
Yes.
And what I can say is that you've got some questions hanging out over in chat. And I think that what you'll find is that probably there's some people who definitely want to explore further. So being able to see the PO matching, that automation, there's like you were talking about the batch, there's also reporting. There's so much here inside of this solution that, like you started, it was simple. And then you started to unveil all of these layers and pieces that you can just have an oodle amount of processes or capabilities inside of Tipalti. So definitely has a ton of features.
Absolutely. Is there any questions particularly you want to hit in the chat, or yeah.
I think that one of the questions is about the AI match for the PO, but that may be one of those that you want to take offline and go deeper into what all is available there.
Yeah, I mean, PO matching is kind of, yeah, I would agree. We probably don't want to talk about PO matching, but I would just say that, let me say this for the crew. In Tipalti, we can define vendor by vendor whether or not you're going to do a PO matching situation, and if so, what flavor of matching. We support line level matching, allocation style, so and that's all out of the box functionality.
I love that, and I've got to see that in action, and even to see if there was a price point change. There was an alert, so it's color coding to be able to say, hey, pay attention to me.
Yeah, we support, Liz is describing our tolerance, our ability to match tolerance and thresholds.
That's fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and count down our poll. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right. Well, is there anything else that you want to show us before we go ahead and do our wrap up?
Yeah, I think if you give me 60 seconds, I think 2 quick things to just at least get through this part of the tool would be good. Once I'm good with the coding here, and I'm going to submit this for approval, I just wanted to give folks a visual of what that approval email looks like. So these are automated, and they would be blasted out to Carly and Brian in my example. Within that email, they're going to see any line level coding that the processor did. They can see the supplier's previous bills. The actual invoice is also attached. And the other thing I'll quickly say is this email is mobile friendly. So Heather could be on the beach with her iPhone or Android and approve the bill, right? She could send it back to AP without ever going into Tipalti. So it's really good from a change management standpoint in that sense. I guess the last thing I'll do, if you'll allow me to just at least preview this, is remember I said that after a bill is approved as you define, it's considered a credit, right? In QBO, right? I've got my liability. And my job then, when I'm on the pending payment stage, is to create a payment batch. This is where I could select, I could filter certain bills, and then I could either choose to pay those selected bills on the underlying due dates, which might be different by bill, or I could pay all of these folks on Friday, right? So you have optionality there. And my point is you could queue up a batch across different payment methods, different currencies potentially, all within one fell swoop, and then have it scheduled out to hit right whenever that needs to be. So with that, that's my quick and dirty overview.
That's huge. Being able to have control over your payments. Yeah, I think that, thank you for sharing that. I will go ahead and share my screen. I think there's a couple of questions that are still left over in chat if you want to take a look at those. Am I sharing the slides again?
You are,
Yep.
yes.
Cool. All right. So we are on the countdown to Happy Hour Camp. We've got 3 weeks left until Happy Hour Camp, and we are going to be, let me just kind of give you an overview of what we're doing. So we're hanging out with all of our educators from our space. So presenters at conferences, presenters for webinars, people who write a bunch and share content with our community. We're pulling all of those people together to be able to say, with our app developers, what do we want to be able to say is possible and building for our next? So what kind of content do we want at accounting conferences, and what do we want to see in our industry? We know that we definitely want to implement some changes, and the more people that you can gather in one place, we're all listening to all of the feedback that we continue to hear from our community, and we want to make that a mission of this group of people. Heather, anything you would add?
Oh yeah, I mean, the idea for this is honestly to bring us together as the accountants that are facing the problems and in the trenches with our clients, with the brilliant minds of the developers that are creating the solutions and technology to solve those problems. And so having the ability for us to sit down for 3 days together and talk about what we're seeing in our industry and be able to ideate and problem solve together is just such a unique opportunity. And I would like to say that this will be the beginning of what's coming as far as Happy Hour Camp and our efforts to do this. So I am just so thrilled to be a part of it, and I can't wait. I'm counting the days.
Look at this. Do you see what today is?
I know.
So talking about celebrations, this makes me like thrilled. You know, years ago, we wanted to create this environment to have content and share with our community how to use apps, which apps to use, understand what is the purpose and the functionality of that solution to determine, does it fit inside of your niche? And here we are on our 100th episode.
I know it gives me goosebumps too. It's kind of amazing. So it's not kind of amazing, it's totally amazing. And it just, we're getting ready for today, and we literally were like, oh my gosh, this is our 100th episode. So Tipalti, yay, you guys win the 100th episode prize.
Wow.
Thank you so much for joining us for that and celebrating with us.
Well, congratulations on the milestone. That's huge.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, it feels really good.
It does. It does. Absolutely.
So I would invite anybody who's curious about camp. We kind of gave a little bit of a teaser, but if you want to learn more, you can go over to the website, happyhourcamp.com, and you can find out more about what's happening at Happy Hour Camp. I will also tell you that we have Marriott Martinez, who's going to be our Facebook Live presenter every single evening, because we know so many of you want to know, what are we talking about? What's happening? And we will be sharing live every single evening, just a recap of the day.
We're also going to keep the momentum going after the live event, which is taking place in the beautiful, I always say the wrong mountain. It's the Appalachian Mountains, but don't fact check me on that. I was about to say Allegheny, and I know that's not right. But it's in the beautiful mountains of Virginia. And so after our live event, we'll also be doing a series of webinars that will be highlighting the partners that are joining us in Virginia for this 3-day retreat, and highlighting the presenters and the speakers that are coming to the camp to collaborate together. So look for those. Well, those will be starting about a month after the live event, and they'll be going on for a year until our next Happy Hour Camp. So be thinking about applying to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are somebody who's an educator or somebody who wants to be, then I would say investigate the Happy Hour Camp for sure.
Definitely.
And then as far as our episodes like today, if you want to view more, if you want to see this recording, you can go visit our website, and there you'll be able to see this recording and other ones. And then there's also YouTube, and then our Facebook group. So make sure that you're staying connected. And I would say the next thing that we're going to be doing, Heather, is going to be live and in person with each other at Happy Hour Camp.
Absolutely. And what we will be doing after Happy Camp, and I think probably some of you that were paying attention noticed this, is we'll be taking a little bit of a break. So Liz and I have been working really hard to put this camp together. And so we're going to take a couple of weeks. So we're going to go a little bit dark for a couple of weeks, and then we'll be back for lots of Happy Hour awesomeness. So we will look to see you again in October after our camp. So we're not going anywhere. We're just taking a little break to
We've
all in.
stretched our muscles with a new industry. I think we've learned event planning is its own thing, y'all.
It is. Yes.
But I want to say thank you to Tipalti. Thank you for joining us today. And I so appreciate the demo. I know that our audience loves that. It's like it brings all of that information to life. So Brian, thanks for being brave enough. Chris, it's always a pleasure. So thank you both.
Always happy to be here.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
So long.